Welcome back to the Real Mummy podcast. I'm your host, Lucy Dalton, and today we're diving deep into a topic that touches every mother's heart: sleep. If you've ever found yourself staring at the ceiling in the early hours, wondering when your little one will finally catch some sleep, then this is the episode for you. Join me as I chat with Ayleen, a mother of twins and a passionate sleep consultant who transformed her own struggles with sleep into a mission to help other mothers find peace and rest. From understanding the vital importance of sleep for your child's development to tackling those dreaded sleep regressions, Ayleen covers it all. We'll uncover actionable tips to create soothing bedtime routines, bust the myths around sleep support, and most importantly, how to take care of your mental health while navigating the sleepless nights. If you're ready to unlock the secrets to better sleep and reclaim those precious moments for yourself, then stay tuned. Grab yourself a cuppa, find a cozy spot, and let's get started on this journey to better sleep together. Hi, Ayleen. Thank you for coming on to The Real Mummy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
As we were mentioning in our kind of pre-chat that, this is a topic that's very passionate about, sleep, because it rules our lives as mothers.
Yeah, it definitely does. Definitely. And but my kind of job, I guess, and passion now is to help mums realize that it doesn't have to be so scary. And so having that dread and that feeling in the pit of your stomach that it is a bad thing, because it's not, and it doesn't have to be.
Amazing. So can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and your journey into how you became a sleep consultant?
Yes, I can. So I had twin girls 3.5 years ago. So if you remember 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, it was COVID, It was lockdown, it was pretty dire. And so both mine and my husband's family are all in the UK, so we had no support. I had the twins, and they did not sleep from the get-go, really. And they were awake every 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it really did affect me. It sent me into a pretty dark space of postnatal depression, and not being able to recover or get the sleep that I needed, as well as the kids getting their sleep, had a massive impact on my life, the kids' lives, and everyone around me. So I got a sleep consultant, and within night one, we saw positive changes, and it just progressed from there. And I made a promise to myself at that point that I was going to help mums, however that may be, once I was in a better state mentally, and I did. So when I came out of my my depression and the kids were sleeping better, I started studying where the kids were in daycare, around work, around around every little minute that I could fit in, and I graduated, and I am now a sleep consultant. So that is my biggest passion at the moment, is to help other mums.
I love it. And you're still kind of in the thick of it as well, I suppose, with like twin toddlers, really, like my daughter's 3.5, and we still, kids are kids, but at that age, with sickness and things that happen, like they're still so young. And so it's all very fresh in your mind as well for when you come across mums with new babies. And I think mums will love that, because you're so relatable, because you've been through it, you're a mum yourself, and you've come out the other end. And to have twins as well, I take my hat off to you. Oh my God. One was hard enough. So
thank you. I think whether you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, however many, I think all mums deserve a medal and recognition for what we do, because it's bloody hard work.
It really is. It really is. And I wish someone had told me, even if you're pregnant, no matter how many times people will tell you, you don't you don't think it will be as hard as it is. Like no one
Yeah.
can, no one can understand like another mum. So
No, it is really hard. And yeah, 3.5-year-olds come with their own challenges, like we've gotten out of the kind of the bad sleeping phase. And then you get the attitudes that come with
yeah,
3-year-olds. So yeah, definitely still in the thick of it. Their sleep is great. And it has been ever since I got the sleep consultant, and learning more about what is about to happen, if they get sick or if we go traveling or things like that. So I kind of have a better knowledge about things that will impact us. So yeah, only recently they went through this really weird stage where they would wake up, screaming, and I was like, okay, I've got to get my work hat on now, not just my mum hat, and kind of figure out what was going on.
yeah,
And yeah, so we did, and we worked through it. And there, even for sleep consultants, there's going to be moments in our lives where our kids are having, bad times, and it's just about supporting them through it as well. So
yeah.
yeah.
And kids are ever changing. I feel like with every aspect of being a mum, I feel like you think you're nailing a part of a stage of parenting and you're like, I've got this. And then all of a sudden they'll throw a curveball and I'm like, oh my God, like I just got my head around that and they're doing something different. So that's motherhood, isn't it?
It is. And isn't it like, yeah, that's one thing that I never can kind of wrap my head around, is that it's constant, it's ever changing, there's always something. But hey, wouldn't have it any other
Oh,
way.
100%. Love, love, love it. But yeah, hardest job in the world.
Yeah.
So why is sleep so crucial for babies and toddlers? And how does it impact their overall development and well-being?
So, if you think about it from, a point of growth, so if they're not sleeping, they're not cognitively developing, all these things that surround sleep, their immune systems on being built up. All of these things that happen during sleep is where their brains kind of like take in all this information, and then the next day, that's where it really kind of helps them developmentally.
Why it's so crucial? So like their little brains, like obviously they need it to grow. Is it
Yes.
as like you said, is that like a one kind of way of like a sleep regression? Because it's like, when they're sleeping, like their brain has to literally grow. Like there's obviously this kind of things that aren't happening during the day. It's when they're at night. Is that right? Like,
Yeah, definitely. So their brains are like this little, like a little computer system. So they download all this information,
yeah,
and they work on it through the night. So,
yeah,
developmentally, cognitively, sleep is so so important. So as well for yeah, their immune systems, they need to be built up. So if they're not sleeping well, they're not eating well the
yeah.
next day either, because they are so tired. So especially for those like tiny babies, they really do need that sleep to be able to feed well.
Mm-hmm.
If they're so tired, they're grumpy, they're grizzly, they're not going to get that big feed in, they're not going to get the calories, and it's just a vicious cycle. So sleep is so important for all things health wise, baby wise, mum wise, family wise. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. And what are some of the most common sleep challenges that parents face with their babies and toddlers that you've kind of come across?
Oh goodness me, there is all manner of things. Obviously the newborn stage.
Mm-hmm.
The newborn stage is actually probably the easiest bit, I think. A lot of, the mums are still in that love bubble, and the babies still have the maternal melatonin. So they're born with melatonin in them from their mom, from being in utero.
Mm-hmm.
That starts to wear off, and then the baby starts to wake up, and then that's where it all kind of changes for mums, because they have this sleepy little newborn, and they think that, oh my God, this is brilliant. It's great. The baby just sleeps.
Yeah.
And then the baby starts to wake up. So it's at that point.
What age is that? Is that about the 6 week point, when they're not technically newborns anymore? Is that roughly around that age?
Starts from about 3
Oh,
weeks.
wow.
So yeah, so it starts to kind of wean off about then.
Yeah.
So and then 6 weeks, and it starts to take another turn as well. And then obviously then I get so many phone calls or messages from mums saying, "Oh my God, my baby's going through the 4 month sleep regression," which we've all heard of.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of I like to think of a regression not so much as a regression, but a progression.
Okay.
So every stage that all of these stages that babies go through, when people call them regression, all a regression is when a baby is learning something new. So they're learning a new skill. So whether that be rolling, crawling, walking, talking, all of these things. So I don't like to think of it as a regression. Yes, the sleep may regress, but really baby learning these fundamental skills in life. So we need to flip it on its head and kind of celebrate these regressions and work through them with mums rather than having that dread that the next leap or regression is going to come up, which I think is really sad for mums as well, when they're constantly waiting for the next thing to happen. And so I kind of want to change mums thinking on that, and learn to enjoy that time, and let's work through it together, and then when you come out of it, then you'll see how much your baby has learned in that time. So I think regressions can definitely be a positive thing.
I love that, because I think that was me the second time around, because I learned that as well. It was kind of like, when a baby's learning a new skill, it's kind of like something's got to give for them to kind of, and it's sleep. And it was kind of like, it's usually like the rolling over, the starting to crawl, the starting to walk, and it's kind of all those milestones. And I think that was me second time around. I didn't stress as much because I used to joke, I'm like, oh, she must be gearing up to do something cool. It was kind of, and of course, next week she's taking steps. It was kind of one of those things. And I think when you realize that, and to take the pressure off, but I was like that I got the Wonder Weeks app. Did you hear about that one? That was my first baby, and she was a terrible sleeper, obviously, to start with, before I reached out and got a sleep consultant. Well, I went to a sleep program, and and I used to look, and I was like, oh my God, look at that, a whole week of stormy skies, and I was like, I would dread it. I would go on and absolutely dread it. And then you're in your mum's group, everyone's going, did you check the Wonder Weeks app? Oh my God, we're in for a terrible season next month. And I was like, oh, and I was dreading it before it even came around. And and it was just terrible. And then, I ended up just like, I got rid of it because I'm like, it's, and also like every baby's different. I'd probably say, you see that, like,
100%.
like, some babies like have a really bad, time when they're 4 months, others not so much, so it's kind of like, and I feel like we put so much pressure and stress on ourselves before it's even happened.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the 4 month regression is the biggest one, because it's really the first one that the babies go through. But if you can master the art of self-settling at that point, a lot of times from that point, you won't really see any more of these regressions. I like regressions. Because the baby has already learned the art of self-settling, and that's the biggest thing. So at that 4 month point, if you can kind of grab it at that point and teach your baby how to self-settle, rather than the rocking to sleep or the feeding to sleep, that is so difficult for mums as well, because they're being woken up every 45 minutes and then they're having to do the same thing. And so if you can really nail down that, then the rest of the time, sometimes babies won't even kind of show any signs of that regression.
I 100% agree with that, because it was kind of like, I kind of found that it was like, started sooner with my second, it was kind of like implementing all these little things to start with. And I never really noticed the regressions as much, because it was kind of like something we've always done. And whereas my first, it was kind of like by the time we got us, the sleep program, everything, yeah, it was. We did notice a little bit, but, you know, we didn't notice as much that second because we just kind of tipped away as we did. And yeah,
Yeah.
the better, definitely.
Yeah.
So how can sleep deprivation take a toll on parents? So especially mums, and nowadays mums are going back to work and they're joining the workforce and they have careers. So we're trying to juggle this sleep deprivation because I struggled. Like, I'm a nurse and I was so confident. I was a bit cocky because I was like, do you know what? I do night shifts. I go like 30 hours out sleeping. I do long shifts. I will be fine. And yeah, I wasn't. Like, yeah, it was brutal, absolutely brutal.
Yeah, I think I think there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on mums, you know, especially because we are predominantly, you know, the ones that will stay home. We're predominantly the ones that will look after the babies, but also, you know, we have the pressure of keeping the household together, keeping our mental state together, you know, having a plan in place to then go back to work. And I think that women aren't, unfortunately, looked after enough
Mhm.
in the after stages of birth. Not from really a medical point of view, but more from like a holistic point of view. You know, you get the child health nurses who are amazing, and they come and they check on the babies, and they kind of, you know, will give you an overall, you know, check in on the moms. But we really, really need more people to be looking out for mums and recognizing the signs of these mums that are struggling, because majority of the time, the mums that are struggling are not going to tell you. Um, and, you know, that's what happened with me. I was trying to juggle all these plates and keep everything in the air, keep everybody happy. And, you know, when the child health nurse would come round and she would ask, how are you going? I'd be like, yeah, yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. I wasn't fine. I had this, you know, dread every day of doing the same thing, knowing that my babies weren't going to get to sleep, having the dread of the bedtime routine, because I knew that my babies weren't going to go to sleep. So I think that we really, as a community of mums, as humans, really just need to look out for new mums, and not even new mums, you know, mums in general, because whether or not you've got a newborn or you've got a toddler or you've got a 5-year old, it's hard. And so yeah, I just think that we all just need to look out a little bit more for one another.
I definitely think so. Like you said, I don't think there's enough emphasis on mums. And, you know, if mums are struggling, it's kind of just like, oh, she's tired. But it's like there might be more going on. And, you know, you know, there's not a natural way, like there's no one coming in to really check on you, is there? It's kind of like, unless you've got that village of mums around you that are kind of checking in. But, you know, if that's not the case, yeah, society has changed. We're not surrounded by like a village of mums all the time anymore and explaining things. So yeah, I definitely agree. I think yeah, it needs a lot more support. There's not.
Yeah, and there is support out there, but we need people to talk about it more as well, you know. So if any mums are struggling, please reach out to Radiant Southwest, because they're an amazing organisation who really do help mums who are struggling. It's a free service, and it needs to be recognised a bit more. And you know, for any mums that need that help, yeah, reach out. Doors are always open there. So yeah, sleep can have a huge impact in everyday life for mums, but especially in the mental health side of things, when you are so sleep deprived as a mum.
Mm-hmm.
And you're then still trying to look after those children the day after, because, you know, mums don't stop, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Whether or not your kids are sleeping or not, you don't stop. So, yeah,
yeah.
sleep is huge.
It is. And then I remember the days where just walking to try and get Maisie to sleep. like, and I walked something like 12 Ks one day just to try and get her to sleep because she was just like so unsettled. And this was all obviously before I kind of got a sleep program. And then same thing at 4 a.m. in the morning, I had not slept, just walking around the house. And I think I slept for like 45 minutes that night. And I remember looking out the window and I was like, no one else is awake. Like, this is just the most loneliest thing. And I wish like back then, like someone could have said to me, like, look, this is, there's help there. Like, and eventually I got there, but it took me another 3 or 4 weeks until I kind of reached where I was like, oh my, I can't keep doing this anymore. Like, I need some kind of routine. I need some help. And but I wish someone had told me that as soon as I'd had her, like,
and that's so funny that you say that about, when you're doing those night feeds and, you're thinking, oh my God, I am the only person in this world that is doing this right now, because at that point, that's how you feel.
Yeah.
But there's so many mums out there that are also feeling the same thing. But they don't need to, and that's really important that that mums know that they don't actually need to feel that. And
it doesn't last forever. You can get onto it, and they do sleep eventually.
It doesn't last forever. Nothing. All that baby, all the tiny little babies that you look at, and then next minute they're 3.5, and they're running around telling you what to do.
I know, it does go so fast, but when you're in that bubble, you can't see out of it. You can't. And I wish I could go back to myself and be like, I promise they will sleep, you will sleep. But at the time, you can't see out of that haze, so it's hard. It's a hard thing.
Yeah, it's really hard.
So how can parents recognize if their child is experiencing a sleep problem versus just going through a normal sleep progression?
Nice word.
Yeah.
So with a sleep progression, you would generally, it would come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Say your baby was, a relatively good sleeper or was quite predictable, and you kind of knew the patterns of things, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, baby's waking constantly through the night, finding it difficult to go to sleep, all of these things, or they're at an age of that developmental stage where they are about to learn something new. Those are the signs that you would be facing a regression. If it's just a sleep issue, it could be anything like feeding to sleep. If a baby is, past the age of, say, 6 months, and they're at a good healthy weight, they can reduce those feeds overnight. Obviously, it's all dependent on the specific baby and their weight gain and things like that. But if you're constantly feeding to sleep overnight, or having to go in and rock the baby back to sleep, they are definitely things that can be helped. And yes, working out if your baby is going through that sleep regression would be a sign of it coming out of the blue from nowhere. And if they are at an age of crawling or learning a new word or a new skill or rolling over, so those would be the signs there.
So there are so many sleep support methods out there. And can you kind of walk us through some of the most effective techniques? And you mentioned about how parents can choose the right one for their family. So do you offer kind of different strategies and different methods based on different families?
Yeah, definitely. So I will always look at each family dynamic. So what might work for one family might not necessarily work for another. Also based around the baby's temperament. So, I will get a client to fill in an intake form. And then I'll give them a call to talk through, what they're telling me about their baby, learn a little bit more about their baby, because there are different methods. So one baby might really love the hands-on approach and the in-room approach where mum or dad is sitting next to them until they fall asleep. Or one baby might be really overstimulated by so much presence in the room, and they might need mum and dad to actually leave.
Mm-hmm.
So a common misconception as well that I see is a baby that mum and dad are constantly picking the baby up from the cot when all the baby wants to do is just go to sleep. The baby is pretty much just saying, please mum, please dad, I can do this all by myself, please leave me alone. But mum and dad are picking the baby up. So there are so many different methods out there. Obviously the big one that people are scared about is the cry it out. And this is where sleep support gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
Because I think years ago, cry it out method was maybe used quite a bit, where you would put your baby in the room, leave it to cry until they fell asleep.
Yeah.
And that really isn't what I'm about. I don't tend to use that. In fact, I haven't ever used that with any of my clients.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more hands-on. Crying is it's a form of communication, right? So a baby is always going to cry. But if you can have a sleep environment that's optimal, the baby's awake time is correct. You've got all these different layers that are put together correctly. Your baby's crying is going to be really limited. So when people get anxiety around the fact that they think that the babies are just going to cry because they're going through sleep support, it's not necessarily the case. So yeah, there is a lot of there's still a lot of stigma around sleep support, which I think is quite shocking actually, in this day and age when, us as women and mums are meant to be building each other up. I really do want to break that stigma that sleep support is leaving your baby to cry, because that's really not what it's about. It's about supporting your baby through the changes and teaching them to self-settle, not to put them in and lock the door and walk away. That's not what we're about.
I think people can put it back to, is it sleep training? That's what they used to say back in the day. Sleep training.
Yeah, so I get a lot of I get a lot of people saying we're going to do sleep training. And yes, to some degree, yes, people do call it sleep training. However, I like to call it sleep support. I'm not stood in a room with an army suit telling you what to do. I'm guiding you through it, as a mum to a mum, from someone that's been there, done it, seen it all. I don't necessarily like that terminology of sleep training. It's definitely a support through the method, and I look at every case individually. It's not one size fits all.
Like every baby's different, and the family what they want to do, and because I was the same. I was like, I never wanted to do the cry it out. There was none of that. So, but for me, I was like, what I was doing, I couldn't keep going on. I had no routine. I was just kind of trying to get her to sleep when she could. And I didn't even know like overtiredness was a thing. Like I didn't know that babies got overtired. Like I literally, no one told me this. And I was like, she would scream, and I was like, she will fall asleep when she's tired. And then as a newborn, she was awake for like 4 hours screaming. I didn't know what was wrong. And that's usually where you're like, oh my God, she's hungry. And everyone's like, oh, she's a colicky baby. And then she was literally just overtired. But everyone is saying something different. And I found out, I was like, oh my God, she was literally just overtired this whole time. Like it was like, and then I was like, oh wow, her awake windows should have been like a quarter of what they were. And that was for me. I just started implementing those little things, following this sleep program. And it was nothing drastic to start with. It was literally just having the right awake windows and all the sleep environments. But it was crazy the difference it made. And there was, like I said, we did like the whole sleep support, we say, but we didn't do any of this cried out. Like it was kind of like a slow thing. Like it wasn't just like a 3 nights go in, like they cry themselves to sleep, that it took a while to kind of get this so they were comfortable in the right conditions, and these are wake windows. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of stigma about the whole sleep support, and everyone's got a different belief. I think that's motherhood. And
Yeah, and
yeah,
I just think in this day and age, now that we know so much about mental health, maternal mental health, why are we still putting mums down? We shouldn't be wearing sleep deprivation like it's a badge of honor,
no.
like it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessary for you to suffer. It's not necessary for your kids to suffer. So yeah, it shouldn't have that stigma that it still does, unfortunately.
It really does. It really does. And at the end of the day, like you said, like I'm a much better mum when I get some sleep and have a bit of time. And yeah, so no, definitely. So that kind of goes on to my next question. For about bedtime routines. So what role do you think bedtime routines and sleep environments play in helping children sleep better?
Yeah, so bedtime routines are definitely something that we love to implement
Yep. I love it.
pretty much straight away. You really want your baby to be nice and calm. You want them to have that idea and that safety that their nursery or their cot is their safe place. And you really want to kind of make them feel comfortable and know that that is a nice thing that's going to happen to them, that they're going to go to sleep and it's a nice positive thing. So you definitely want your bedtime routine to be nice and calm, really nurturing, getting your baby into their nursery and getting them to feel comfortable and safe in that place, because ultimately that's what you want to teach them, right? So it's a nice place to be able to go to every nap time, every bedtime, and so really making them comfortable in that environment. So that can be implemented from day dot.
Mm-hmm.
A nice bath, a nice story time. And then as they get older, it really does become quite important. So when they get to, that toddler age, when they're a lot more aware, and they're a lot more aware about the diversion tactics.
Yeah.
How many times are they going to go to the toilet, or they want to tell you again about what they fed the dog.
I'm so going to die of dehydration. Like it's.
So a bedtime routine is super important, and to make them feel safe and nurtured. And I see a lot of parents that will kind of scramble at bedtime because they're constantly like conscious about looking at the clock and making sure that they're following the schedule. But what they do forget in that point as well is making sure that their baby feels nice and calm and relaxed. So especially around that like 9-month mark where separation anxiety peaks as well. We find that babies will actually resist in even putting on their sleeping bag.
Yeah.
So when they see their sleeping bag, they're like, no, I know what's coming. So by implementing these really beautiful moments beforehand, and having that connection with your baby will really help them to feel secure going to bed, which is really, so important and definitely what you want to be able to do.
That's fantastic. My mum always laughs at that. She's like, your kids never like fight going to bed, and they're 3.5 and 5.5. And like, don't get me wrong, when it's time to go to bed, they'll still be like, like I need a wee, or, I need a drink. But like when I say, right, it's time for bed, there's never any like, I don't want to go to bed. There's never any of that. And they both just toddle off to bed. They get ready with your books. And then like they might get up every now and then, but they're never, I don't want to go to bed. There's never that. And as well, I was like, I've heard so many mums like use bed as a punishment. It's like, oh, you're being right, you're going to bed early tonight. And it was like a punishment, or like, right, you're so cranky, right, you're going straight to bed. Like it was just that kind of like a punishment, whereas it was kind of like we were taught, like, oh, it's nearly bedtime. Like it was like a like a treat, and it was a nice
Yeah.
thing. And then someone said to me, like, there were, babies, I don't know if this is true, you might know, but babies can kind of pick up if you're anxious that they're not going to sleep, or if you're feeling stressed, oh my, I'm
100%.
dreading the night and they're not going to sleep and you're feeling anxious about it, they can kind of pick up on that. Do you think that's
100%? Your baby feeds off you so much. And so your anxieties will definitely feed through to them. So yeah, ensuring that you are calm. And that's why it's really, it can be really nice and a bonding time for dads to do bedtime sometimes. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have that luxury with Jack because he was always working at bedtime.
Yeah.
So it did feel like an extra struggle as well. But if you can incorporate your husband or your partner or the dad or their caregiver to do that, it's a really nice time for them to have that time together as well. But it's funny that you say about the punishment because I remember Jack saying to the kids once, right, I'm going to take you to your bed. And I was like, no, please don't do that, because we really need to encourage them that their bedroom and that their bed is their safe place.
Yeah.
And it's not a place of punishment. That's not where they go to when they've been naughty. That's actually their sanctuary, and that's where we want them to feel safe and loved and secure, so that they do go to bed feeling happy.
Yeah. And it's kind of as well, I still like to give them, I remember when they're like around 2, and it was like, they want a little bit of control. So I would do the whole like, do you want to walk to bed or do you want me to carry you to bed? It was kind of like, look, you're going to bed, but you can have some way of how you get there. And it was like, that was the same. And it's like, do you want to do this or this? And it gives them some kind of, they feel like they've got some control, but it's like either way, it's like, well, we're going to go to bed, but how do you want to get there? Like, do you want me to piggyback you to bed? Do you want me to carry? It was kind of like and they were always like, if they were ever a bit like, oh, and they're like, oh no, I want you to carry me. I'm like, okay. And then it was just kind of, yeah, like I said, it's like a nice way of going. It's not like a, come on, you're going to bed, like it's.
Yeah, definitely. We do plane rides sometimes. So, I mean, they're getting a little bit heavy now, but we will do plane rides where we'll go on holiday. So we'll pick the girls up and we'll pretend that we're an aeroplane, and we'll take them around the house, and we'll say goodnight to all the different things. We'll say goodnight to the dog. We'll say goodnight to the cars. And then we'll, zoom them around as if they are the aeroplane, and then they give each other a kiss, and then they get into bed. And it's a really nice, fun way to connect before bed as well. And yeah, make it fun for them. It's a really good age to work with is the toddlers, because it's fun and you can incorporate them into it, and it gives them a good sense of like responsibility and achievement if they've done something well. So if I'm working with a mum and the 3-year-old it was constantly getting up out of bed or things like that, we would implement a reward chart. And I'm working with one at the moment, and he was so proud of himself that he stayed in bed and he got his sticker the next day, and he chose where he could put the sticker. And it's amazing at how simple that these things are, but their sense of achievement is massive. So it's a really fun age to work with. I love working with the toddlers.
Oh, that's good. And yeah, they are good fun. It's a hard age, but it's a fun age.
Yes, yeah, definitely hard.
And I was like, because my hubby does FIFO, so I do bedtime routine pretty much every night on my own. And so for me, that was another reason I was like, I need a good routine. They need to be able to sleep well because I'm on my own. Like I've mentioned in previous podcasts where I've had friends, whose husbands are home for bedtime, and they both kind of take one child and they will go and sit with them. And, and I was kind of like, I can't do that. I don't have the time to sit and like, stroke them till they fall asleep or any of these things because I'm on my own, and I've got 2. So it's, we do like, we go in one first, kiss, good night, then the next one. And then I kind of need that space on an evening for me. So that's the bedtime is so important. That was when I've had a long day, if they've struck, that's my saving grace, that couple of hours when they're in bed. And yeah, it's the best thing. So if mums haven't got a bedtime routine, definitely get one because it's so worth it.
Definitely. Yeah. If you think about it, if you think about your day as a mom, the kids generally wake up before you. And then you're either with them all day, or you go to work and they go to daycare. If you're not in a work environment, you're still working at home, right? Doing the household jobs or anything like that. So that couple of hours that you get when they go to bed is so sacred.
It is. It's like, yeah, no one interrupt me. This is my time. So
Get that glass of wine, get that block of chocolate, and enjoy yourself, mama.
100%. Oh my God. So I'm going to start going on to naps now, because that's where I struggled as well. Because I literally, like I mentioned, I was like, I didn't know when I had Maisie. I was like, oh, like, they're meant to nap this many times, or I had no idea. I thought they just napped when they did, and I didn't know there was a thing of like so many naps. And honestly, it was just, and how long they were meant to nap. Like Maisie was napping for like 30 minutes, and I thought that was standard. And I just, and then after a while, I was like, I can't keep living like this, trying to rush and do everything in 30 minutes. Amazing what you can do. Mums are great at that.
Superpower.
Yeah. But yeah, and it wasn't until I started doing this sleep program, I was like, oh my God, like this isn't the norm. I can actually get her to sleep longer. And so what advice do you have for parents, for managing that nap resistance, or the catnapping things?
Cat naps are so frustrating.
Oh my God.
And they are so common. So really your cat naps are an indication that your baby is, it could be undertired or it could be overtired. It's really difficult. So you'd need to like look at each child individually, but making sure that your room environment is really key. So a lot of times parents will be putting their kids down in a room that's they deem that it's block out or dark, but ultimately it's not dark enough. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a big lover of a very dark room.
Yeah.
So we know that melatonin is produced a lot more easily in a dark space. So having a super dark room is really important for those naps. If your room isn't that dark, chances are the baby is not going to consolidate that nap, because when they wake up after that sleep cycle, they look around and it's quite light. It's very difficult for them to go back to sleep as well. So room environment, making sure that your baby has those awake times correct. You can look at your baby's age and take it as a guide, but every baby is slightly different. So it may be that your baby needs an extra 5 minutes awake, or 5 minutes less. So it's really finding that balance for your particular baby. So a lot of the time it can be playing around with those things. But yeah, overtiredness, undertiredness, room environment, is your baby too hot? Is your baby too cold? Is your baby hungry? So all of these things, it's a bit like a game of Tetris, right? So if you make sure that you've got all your little bricks that are fitting in correctly, those naps will become a lot more easier for you.
I think that's the thing. It's more, I think, for mums as well, to know that that's not the norm. Is it like that's not the norm, and they can get the kids to nap for longer. And I think I've seen a lot of mums and like, oh, that's just my child. They just nap for 30 minutes and they wake up happy and they're fine. And I think it's just that's why I kind of want to get that word out as well, that like, there's probably a reason as to why, and they could get them to sleep longer,
100%. Yeah, there's what people don't realize as well is, they think that their baby is getting all of this sleep because they're having, 7 cat naps through the day. Yeah. But those cat naps are not restorative for your baby. They're not. And so that is then going to feed through the night. Your baby's going to be up more because they are overtired, because they've not had that restorative sleep in the day. So yeah, cat naps are so frustrating, but they're actually quite easy to master if you get everything else around in it.
Yeah. And what about the managing the nap resistance?
So nap resistance really comes from, a lot of the time it can come from undertiredness. So, are you putting your baby down to sleep when they're just not ready.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it can be a little bit of overtiredness.
Yep.
But yeah, so if you make sure that your awake windows are right, your sleep environment is right, that resistance really shouldn't be so much of a problem if you've got all the different layers put together correctly.
This awake windows are brilliant. Like, again, I remember like I was saying to my mum, I was like, oh, she's ready for a nap. It's this right time. And mum's like, but she doesn't look tired. And she's like, she doesn't look tired. I was like, no, like this is good. I want to catch her before she gets overtired. Like, she's like, but she doesn't look like she's going to sleep. And within 5 minutes, she's asleep. And I was like, honestly, the awake windows are just like, yeah, magic.
And there's such a small amount of time as well to get it, because if you miss it,
Yeah.
you can be in a whole heap of trouble.
And it's funny how you say that every babies are different. Like our youngest child could have the longer awake windows. So like she, it was crazy. Like she was able to stay awake for a bit longer, but then she napped for a lot longer. Like it was just that tweaking of the difference. But like you said, once you think you find the right awake windows, it's easy then to kind of gather. Then later on, you can kind of add on to it, can't you? And
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, every baby is definitely different. I recently worked with a mum, and she was absolutely exhausted. The baby was waking up, yeah, like a lot through the night, and wasn't sleeping in the day. And this poor mum was just pulling her hair out. And we worked through this routine. And on day one, the baby slept great. And then day three kind of like took a bit of a turn. And I was like, what is going on? And so I went through absolutely everything
yeah.
meticulously. And then we figured out that this baby just had a bit of lower sleep needs than a baby his age,
Yep.
any other baby his age would do. And so we tweaked it down slightly, and within 2 weeks, the baby that wasn't sleeping overnight and wasn't napping in the day was sleeping 12 hours overnight and having two naps beautifully in the day. So it really does depend on each baby. So that is one thing that, if you're looking at something from a general point of view, and you look at something and you're like, oh, my baby's 6 months, my baby needs this, and it's not working.
Yeah.
It could be something really simple, like a very, very simple tweak. Because yeah, sleep is not linear.
Oh my God. It's like, that's what I love. Like there's like a method to it. You can solve it. Like it's okay. Like it's not the end of the world. Like, it can be solved.
Yeah.
So what kind of strategies can parents use to handle all the frequent night wakings?
Reach out to me.
Yeah.
That would be a strategy. There's so many things that go into night wakings, depending on what age that baby is. Is baby waking through the night because they're of an age where they do need those overnight feeds? That's okay. If your baby needs feeding, feed it. If your baby is waking up for no particular reason that you can see, you would generally need to look at what their day has been like. Have they had too much sleep? Too much sleep in the day can often cause overnight wakings, because that day sleep is taken away from the night sleep. So it's basically feeding it. So yeah, is your baby having too much day sleep? Is your baby having not enough day sleep?
Yeah.
Is your baby cold? So a lot of the time as well, the temperature can be a huge thing for overnight wakes, especially if your baby's waking up at like the 3 o'clock mark every single morning. The temperature does drop. So if it's a habitual wake like that, are they cold?
That was my next question as well, for the early morning risers. So that was my eldest, and she was like the 4:30 every morning, 4:35. It was, oh my God, it was one of those things. And she's still, like, to be fair, like she sleeps like till 6 now, but like that's, you know, a sleep in for us. 6 o'clock is a sleep in, you know, when she was the 4:35. So any tips, yeah, for the early morning rises?
Yeah, God, they're a killer, right?
Like,
And so many moms contact me and they're like, "Oh my God, my baby is waking up so early."
yeah.
Um, so yes, like I said earlier, black out that room, especially coming into summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can get some pretty cool blackout blinds nowadays that really do make that room dark. But generally, early morning rising can be attributed from being overtired. So the cortisol levels are rising. It's waking baby up. Your baby could be cold. So all of these different things can really feed into those early morning rises. But there is a lot of different things that you would need to look into to consider why your baby is waking up early. Could it be that there is a lot of external noises? So is there traffic? Are you using white noise? Because white noise is a fantastic tool to use for babies, especially when when they're younger as well, and they get that beautiful sound that they're used to from being in mum's tummy. But also it can be a great sound, a noise protection from external noises that may be waking your baby up. Is your partner getting up early to shower to get to work? So yeah, a lot of the time, it can be different things, but overtiredness is a big one.
All right. Yeah, that was probably me. So yeah, that was just, yeah, because she's fine now. Like I said, 6 a.m., but hubby's an early riser. So I think she's just, yeah. And then whereas my second, like she'd sleep till like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, this is cruel when it's your second child and you're up at 5:30 with your first.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she couldn't have been my first to do that.
Yeah. And some babies, are they do they are just naturally early risers.
Mhm.
But if your baby is 4:30, that's not normal.
No, that's still the middle of the night, I think. It's still, yeah.
Still, it's still the day before.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I know. I'm not functioning at that point. No way. So, how can you mentioned before about illness and teething and things? How can
Mm.
parents handle sleep disruptions, caused by teething and illness without forming those negative sleep associations? Because I was so nervous to kind of, when they're sick or something, I was like, if I picked them up and the only way I could get them to sleep was rocking them, I was petrified of, kind of damaging all this hard work you've done. And then, so yeah, how can parents handle those disruptions?
Yeah, I think it's really sad when mums do have that thought process in their head that, they've done all this work to help their baby learn to self-settle. And then when their baby needs them, they think that they can't pick them up, they can't give them a cuddle because it's going to unravel everything. And that's not the case at all. Your baby needs you when they're sick. So if your baby needs you, support them through that time. There is no harm in picking your baby up or feeding your baby to sleep or rocking your baby to sleep. If they are sick, they need you. So it's totally fine to do that. If you have already gone through the process of sleep support and your baby knows the art of self-settling, when they're sick, and you support them through that, they're not going to lose that skill. Once they come out of that illness, they will remember how to self-settle, and they won't necessarily need you there all the time again. So I think it's really important that mums have that feel empowered that they can cuddle their baby when they're sick, or you don't need to be so strict. And yeah, a common misconception actually around teething is that it will cause them to wake up. And generally that's not the case. Teething will can definitely impact them going to sleep.
Mhm.
So that, they'll feel pretty uncomfortable. They'll feel a bit rough, going to sleep, and that's quite normal. But generally, when they're asleep, it shouldn't impact them so much. So if your baby's waking every hour,
Mm-hmm.
I would be inclined to say that it's actually not their teeth, and
Yeah.
it may be something else that's impacting it. If your baby is happy through the day but waking every hour, that to me suggests that it's not teeth because they were happy in the day. So if they were grizzly in the day all day, obviously something's bothering them.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily just be overnight that it's affecting them.
Oh my God, I wish I listened to this with my kids, like when they were babies, because yeah, it was like when they're sick and then they've got like a snotty nose and they can't breathe, so they want to be upright.
Yeah.
And then they're there and you're in the rocking chair, and I was the whole time, because obviously what else are you going to do? So they sleep on you. The whole time I was so stressed. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be really bad. Like I'm just, she's asleep on me. I was like, oh God, she's going to expect this every night. And she didn't. But the stress we put ourselves under is just, and we're just trying to get through the night.
Yeah, and mums shouldn't have to, you shouldn't have to feel that. You should be able to have that feeling that you can support your baby through it, and you don't need to be so hard on yourself or your baby. Because they shouldn't forget that skill of self-settling just because they've been sick.
So what advice do you have for parents to take care of their own mental health while dealing with sleep issues in their children?
You need to take time out for yourself. And it's really not as easy as me just saying that to do it. I get it. I've been there. People used to say to me, sleep when the babies are sleeping. Yeah. I'm like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Do you know what a ridiculous thing to say like that is? You have so many more things to do than sleep. And the babies are only catnapping, right? So you don't get anything done.
No.
But it's so important that you, even sit down, have a cuppa, and, have that time for yourself. If you don't, it really does just impact on everything. It can really be something that just keeps on rolling, and it grows and it grows and it grows, and it doesn't get any easier. So having that support around you is paramount, and not a lot of people do have that support systems, that they used to have. They used to call it, the village and things like that. And the village doesn't seem to be as big a lot of the time now, but you have to find your village and reach out to people. And if people are asking you if you need help, take it. Because that is one thing that I really didn't do. Had so many people reach out to me because I guess that we had no family here. So those people that did reach out to me, I kind of didn't take them seriously, maybe, and they would say, oh, what can we do? What can we bring? Can I help at all? And I would just say, no, I'm very stoic. I've got this, I can do it. And I don't know why we continue to beat ourselves up and not ask for help, not take the help when it's given. So I really do think that it's important that we do take that time out for ourselves, even if it's a cuppa, even if it's, once a month going to get yourself a little massage or something that you find brilliant.
I think that for me as well, that was my big thing with sleep, because I was like, well, my mental health got so much better once they started sleeping, and I actually had time to think instead of having this baby 24/7 on you and crying. And, I think as well, if you're having a rough day, you kind of know, like, it's, even for adults, we love routine as well. This predictability. That's kind of like, right, I'm having a rough day. I'm like, in 1 hour, I know she's going to go for a nap and she's going to sleep for an hour. So I kind of just knew I had to get to that point. And then by then I could be fresh again. And yeah, it definitely helps.
Yeah, even if you can, go outside, I used to, I would put the babies to sleep, and whether or not I knew that I was going to get 15 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes, I would just try and get some fresh air,
Yeah.
because there was days where, I wouldn't leave the house.
Yeah.
There was days where I didn't see another adult. I didn't speak to another adult.
Hmm.
So even going outside and just listening to a podcast or, something, and getting that fresh air, really does have an impact on your mental health, and changing your mindset, and just, yeah, making sure that you are reaching out for help and getting that help when it's offered, because that is the one downfall of all mums, that, we think that we can do everything, and we can't, and we don't have to. So yeah.
Yeah. I think as well, it's like you mentioned about the sun going out, and I was like, everything is better when the sun comes up at night. Everything, when they're not sleeping, everything seems like the end of the world. And as soon as the sun starts coming up, it's like, okay, like, yeah, things are going to be okay. But when you're the only one up at night, and then for me, I used to get there's a saying about it. It's like I used to get anxious when the sun was going down. Like when Maisie was a really bad sleeper, and I would get anxious because I'm like, oh my god, what's in store for me tonight? And I would dread the night times. And yeah, it was just I was like, I can't keep going on like this.
Yeah, I think I remember having that anxiety pretty much from the moment I woke up in the morning, if I had been lucky to sleep. But when the babies were waking up in the morning, and I knew that it was the start of a new day,
Mm.
I I honestly felt doom.
Yeah.
All I felt was doom, that
Mm.
I was going to have to go through the whole cycle again of babies not sleeping, me being so frustrated, me being so tired because they wouldn't sleep, and therefore, if they're not sleeping, then I can't have a little nap.
Yeah.
Um, and that anxiety then just built through the day, and it got worse and worse and worse. And so by the time that they were having that final nap,
Mm-hmm.
I remember just bouncing them in the rockers in the living room. Um, and it would be the time where, like, the chase was on the TV,
Yeah.
and I would be just rocking them and hoping that they would stay asleep. And I found that I was wanting my babies to sleep all day, because I just had this dread of them waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's awful for a mum to have to feel. That is not nice. So yeah, I don't want any mum to ever feel that dread of having to parent through the day, because that is not what having kids is about.
Yeah.
You're meant to you know, revel in them, and enjoy them, and enjoy that time of being a mum. Because yeah, I find that I grieve that time when my babies were small, because I didn't enjoy it, and I didn't like it, and I know that I'm never going to get the opportunity to do it again. And so, yeah, I really don't want any mums to ever have to feel that dread of the day of being a parent, because it's not nice, and it's not what motherhood is about.
No. And yeah, I think I was the same. I kind of felt like it was like, what's wrong with my motherhood journey? Because I was like, this isn't what I was seeing. I was the exact same. It was just all day. I would just dread it. And I was like, I finally get them to sleep. And then I would dread when they'd wake up again, and I'd have to do it again, try and get them to sleep again. And then I would look at other mums who had these sleepy newborns that would just sleep all the time, or these babies. And I was like, what's wrong? Like, well, how come I didn't get that experience? And yeah, I completely get that. You kind of grieve you didn't get that. And yeah, it's horrible when mums are feeling like that and they're kind of on their own. And oh, that would have been so hard.
Yeah, no mother deserves to feel that. And so if we can all start talking about it a
Yeah.
little bit more, and let's be real about this motherhood journey that we're on, that it's not all as it seems a lot of the time. And yeah, a lot of it does come down to sleep or the lack of it. But it really doesn't have to be like that. And so my mission is to help mums along this journey and to make sure that they enjoy it, because it can be enjoyable.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be this big dread.
definitely. So do you have any kind of favorite books or websites or resources that you would recommend to parents, you know, if they are struggling, or just reach out to you or actually find a sleep consultant? Do you think they are the best way to go?
Yeah, I think there are great books out there, but a lot of it can be quite overwhelming. A lot of it is very scientific, and when you're a new mum or a mum who is sleep deprived, reading those books can sometimes be really overwhelming, and you don't necessarily take a lot of things in. So yeah, reaching out to someone with lived experience. A lot of sleep consultants nowadays do have that lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just reach out to any of us. And yeah, we would love to just guide you through, because that's ultimately the main focus is for you to enjoy this process. So yeah, resources are, I think the best ones are the ones that do have lived experience.
And where can our listeners find more about your work and get in touch with you if they need help?
So you can find me at _sleep garden on Instagram, sleep garden on Facebook, and sleepgarden.com is my website. And yeah, I have a range of packages available, or you can give me a call, and I offer free 15-minute chats. So if you just want to have a chat and rant, tell me that you're not sleeping, tell me that your baby's not sleeping, and I can tell you that it will get better.
Yeah.
So yeah, feel free to reach out to me at any point.
Thank you so much, Ayleen. So I feel like you're going to change so many lives, and I really wish you were around when I had my first and I listened. And yeah, and it's just the fact of the no judgment, and you understand and you've been through it. And yeah, I think you're going to do a fantastic job helping so many mums out there. And I'm honored that you came on and was able to share your personal story as well. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Real Mummy podcast. Remember, every mum's journey is unique and you are doing an amazing job. Please be sure to head over to our website at www.realmummypodcast.com to stay up to date with the latest episodes and dive into our recent blog articles filled with even more wisdom and stories. We absolutely love connecting with our listeners, so don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Real Mummy Podcast. Join the conversation, share your thoughts, and become part of our supportive mum community. And I'd love to hear from you. Have you got a topic you want covered? Do you have a guest you'd love to hear from? Reach out to us through our website or social media. Your input is invaluable and helps us to create the content that matters most to you. Thank you for being part of the Real Mummy podcast family. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind to yourself, and remember, you're never alone on this journey. You've got this.